Hello and welcome to my channel. In today's episode, we're going to be having a look at a finance use case. So this is actually put together for a finance user group. I'm linking the details below in the description box so that you can connect with the Power BI finance group, which are an awesome group of people that meet up I think every 2 weeks, usually on a Thursday. So I presented there on one of the Thursdays. So anyways, this video I'm gonna kind of walk you through that solution, and I hope you really enjoy it. I hope that I can really show the power of the platform here, because we're not going to be looking at just one component, but Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps all together, and how they can seamlessly be used to build out a finance use case. So we're going to do something a little bit different here, as I often don't actually share some of my other social media platforms on my channel. So to connect, I'm on LinkedIn, so if you'd like to connect there, love to kind of connect with you there, and I share loads of my content there as well, so you won't miss some of my videos. My blog post at the top right is Jessie's Power Channel, where I consolidate a lot of topics and share ideas as well. My Twitter, where I reshare a lot of content and share my own content. And then obviously you have my YouTube channel, which you're on right now. And please do subscribe, as I'd love for you to connect with me in this way. So let's think about what this solution is. So what we'll do in this video is we'll talk through the actual solution and then how each of those parts are actually built. So we have a Power BI report that's connected to some financial data. So I'll show you how that is set up. We're then going to use Power Apps to submit a forecast and interact with this data to a Sharepoint list, which we'll show. And then we're going to use Power Automate connector to actually refresh that Power BI report itself from the Power Apps. So seamlessly, we're using the breadth and scale of the Power Platform here. So let's have a look at the solution first. Let's have a look at the solution in its entirety first. So I'm just going to show you a couple of bits that actually put this together. So we have our SharePoint list here, which essentially has this title, which is more of like an index really. When that entry date was done, the account type, the forecast prediction, and the commentary. So I'll explain a bit more about what the actual data set is. So let's go ahead and have a look at Power BI right here. So I'm just going to go into my recents actually. So it's right here. So what this is we're looking at some accounts, and we either have this graphical view or we have this income statement. So we have commissions, conferences, discounts, employee benefits, entertainment, etc. And we have this commentary, which is basically, why have we chosen this forecast? The variance between the actual and forecast. So right here, in this particular example, the forecast was 15,000 more, because it's a negative number here, than the actual. The actual to budget variance, the forecast to budget variance, and then the percentages. And then we can have a look at this in a graphical view. So for example, if I look at commissions, for example, so our actual for commissions was minus 1.2, 1.3-ish million, and our forecast was 1.5 million. And then what the difference is on that and why. So it's really a tool to start kind of thinking about how we could remodel things, it's just basically scenario modeling. Now, at the top right here, you see this button, which is remodel accounts. And that pops up. I'm just going to switch to the graphical view, actually. Oh, whoops. Yeah, put that up there. So it's going to cover up a little bit of the screen right there, but it's opened up a Power App. So what I can do is I can go down and have a think about, all right, well, conferences, I think, are going to be non-existent, and that's because of COVID, we expect no conferences to take place. And then employee benefits, well, we're going to up that a little bit because it's been a pretty troubling time. COVID up, just something like that. Let's say we actually need more equipment now, because a lot of people don't have everything they need. So I'm just going to put in some random words here. Maybe we'll do one more. So meals are slightly down because we don't need them as much, so it's say working from home. And then we'll save that forecast, and we'll see the dots go ahead and start submitting that data. While that's happening, actually, I'm just going to open up Power Automate just to show you the solution within that. So it's a very simple connector that I'm using, which is the refresh finance dataset. So if we have a look at the run history, we'll actually see that 15 seconds ago it was run. Okay. And so that's now been done. It's going to reflect our dataset, but just to show you where we can actually see refreshes, we can go into this section here, go down to the dataset, and have a look at the scheduled refresh, and you can see here that it last succeeded just like a minute or so ago. So that's great. So now we can go back into our report and have a look at our income statement, and we've got that kind of COVID that we put in, and just trying to remember what else we put in. Oh, actually sorted by the commentary. The other way. So working from home, we just need more, COVID. So that is our entire solution. So let's now have a think about how we're actually going to build this up from scratch. So with any Power BI report and Power Apps, of course we need some data to work with. So I've actually put my data in two different places, and that's really to give an idea of how we can connect to data. So first of all, our data does need to be hosted in the cloud or somewhere online in order for Power BI to do a refresh. So a scheduled refresh, to get around, I don't want to use a gateway in this example. I put my my fact data, so where my account details, my actuals are in this SharePoint here. So there's some CSVs, and they actually go month by month. So we're going to have a look at how to pull that into Power BI. And then we have these reference data, which is kind of account names, and we've got dates in here, we've got departments, and we're going to have a look at how to pull each of those separately into our Power BI. So before we have a look at how to pull that data into our Power BI report, let's have a look at the SharePoint elements. So how do we actually build a SharePoint list? So I'm going to go over to SharePoint here and here. And we'll actually look at a few of these columns and what kind of data types they have first of all. So we've got a title, and this is actually default by SharePoint. We've got an index, and if we have a look at what kind of, I don't want to change my password right this second. The column settings here, it is a number, so we want a number, and that will actually show us what our latest forecast is. Our entry date, which is a date field, so a date and time. We have an account type, which is actually a description text field, a forecast prediction, which is a numerical value, so that's our multiplier. The commentary, which is of course text as well. So clicked, there you go. So that's our data there. So what we can actually do is we can go ahead and we can add a list as well. So I'll just show you how we can do that. So if I go back one step into lists within SharePoint, one step up, we can create new and then create list. And from here on, I can just call it test list, for example. And I can slowly start building up my various columns. So if I'm going to click new, I can have a single line of text, like I said, with the commentary, like that. I can create the actual forecast prediction. Okay. Create a number, like that. And so on and so forth. So I'm not going to create the entire list here, but this is how you actually create a SharePoint list like that. So what we'll do now is we'll have a walkthrough of the Power BI tables and the relationships within here, but we'll actually build the Power App from scratch. So here in our Power BI report, we have these reference tables, which are from the OneDrive. So we have accounts, we have the dates for our financial data, we have the departments, the headers, which is just the name of the various financial elements, the organizations, and the scenario, which we're not actually using, which is the actual and the budget, which we are using in fact. And then here we have our actual finance data, which is the fact data. So this is a historical load of the amounts that we're using in order to do our multiplier on. And importantly, now we've got our SharePoint list here. So in our SharePoint list, our forecast predictor is going to land here. Now, what we do, and I'm just going to show you here, is we have our forecast predictor actually being attached to our account. So this allows for Power BI to actually do that multiplication and bring in the commentary as well. So we head over and look at our Power BI report. We can see that we have a simple table here, and we have some various DAX measures. So I'm going to be sharing all the resources for this file in a, what's the word, GitHub, so you can access all the files here. And we've got the graphical, which is, this is a bar chart here, and we have a table here. So nothing too fancy in terms of visuals. Oops. I've also got this button, so this bookmark, which lets me travel between my pages. But let's really concentrate on this Power App here. So let's actually go over to Studio, and we're going to build this from scratch. So we've had a look at our Power BI section here. So now we're going to have a look at how the Power App is going to be built, which is very exciting. So let's head over to make.powerapps.com. I'm going to go into Apps here. I'm going to create a new application, and I'm going to do that from scratch. So I'm going to be building this up. And I'm going to go for a phone layout. Very quickly, we'll be able to put together this information. Okay. I'm actually going to put a theme on there straight away because I quite like it to look quite good to begin with. Let's go for this coral theme. I need my dataset, of course, so I need my SharePoint list to actually connect, which is not this SharePoint list, but this one here. So we'll pick that up, and we will connect that in as a data source. So I'm going to go into SharePoint and do that. And just take away the end bit so that it picks up like this. Oops. Try that again. And it's actually got some of my SharePoint lists that were connected before. So I can pick up the finance one, which is within Power Platform. And we have JN Finance list, and that's now connected. So now that we're in our Power App here, let's go ahead and build a kind of gallery to have a look at the data in first. So as a best practice, what I like to do, and is quite good in general, is we should always put our data into a collection, and that actually means that we can get around delegation issues. And delegation essentially means that certain formulae can't be used unless your data is in a local collection within Power Apps. So I'm doing two things here. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to be doing a little bit of copy and paste just to speed things up, as I'm sure you don't want me to sit here and write lots of code. So I'm using this clear collect function, which is basically a way of collecting that data into the memory as such in Power Apps. So I'm calling that temp call list. It's just a name I've come up with. I also just want to know what the maximum ID is in my temp call list, which is the index, which, as we remember, is this value here. And what that will allow me to do is actually be able to always know which the latest of my forecast is, which is what's going to be used in Power Apps. Okay. Another thing I need to do is I actually want to be able to know what all the different accounts are that I need to forecast against. So I'm actually going to put that in my on start. So I produced this list from my Power BI report. I actually exported all the account names, and I'm putting them into this list. And if we just run the on start, so it's very similar to doing what we did from the SharePoint, except I'm manually putting this together, and we can see this accounts list. And now we've got a long list of all the accounts, which we can now use in our Power BI report. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put that accounts list into a gallery. So in Power Apps, we have various ways of showing data, and one of these is a gallery. So I'm going to put a blank vertical gallery here. And I'm actually going to connect this to the accounts list as opposed to the SharePoint, or will become clear in due course. Okay. So now what I'll do is I'm going to insert an item from here. And what we'll do is this is actually going to show the account name. So of course we need the account name to know what we're doing our forecast against. My second bit will actually be, I'm just going to call it forecast prediction. So just a little bit of text to help the user know what they need to do next. And then I'm going to have a drop down. So we'll have a drop down for the user to pick some values against, like that. Okay, and this red is absolutely fine. It's kind of actually in line with the color scheme. I'm just going to pick this up from another notepad. So what the drop down values I want is essentially a series of values, which is like this. So 0, 0.2, 0.4. So that's what the user can pick. And of course we have our commentary as well. So we want our user to be able to pick some commentary. So just make this a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger than that, I think. Let's give it a little more space. And then make that a little bit smaller that way. Okay. We'll give it we won't give it a default text in fact, because we don't want text input to be submitted, but what we can do is give it a hint text. So this is telling the user what they're meant to do with this. So I'm going to write, please provide some commentary like this. We'll put a border around this as well. Whoops, just to make it nice and neat. Like this. I'm going to give it a nice little title at the top. I'm actually using a button there, just for neatness. Forecast application, and of course, once this is done, we do want to save the forecast as well. So that's our very basic app. Doesn't do anything just yet. So there's nothing fancy going on. But it's a good start, and we can start building out the next step. So what we'll need to do now is we'll actually need to save this forecast into our SharePoint, right? So in order to do that, first we need to build some kind of tables that show us what we need. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to build this up step by step, is I'm going to collect the items of my gallery into a local collection. And the name of this gallery is at the moment Gallery 1. I'm going to rename my Gallery 1 as Forecast Gallery. Let's go ahead and do that. This. And so what it's doing is it's basically putting all the items within this gallery, so whatever I pick, into a local collection. So what we can do is I'm just going to click Save Forecast at the moment, and that won't do anything except put all the items within this gallery, and we can have a look at that here. So we can see here that we've got our result. It says these items aren't supported, but that's not supported for the viewing. So it doesn't know how to show you the result from a drop down in this preview, but it does actually save it in the preview itself. Okay. So now let's get on to the next step. So we'll just close that down. So the next thing I'm going to do is I just want to find out what the max ID is before I send the data to my database. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. And between each statement, we need a semicolon. And what that's going to do is it's going to look in our temp call list, which is actually, if you remember, the data from our SharePoint list. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to know what my latest number of my forecast is going to be. And that's important for Power BI to read the latest number. So again, as with everything, we will always test along each step of the way. Okay. And now that I've tested that, I can see that the maximum ID that I have within my database, and oh, that didn't actually run. Did I not click play? Let's try again. Click Save Forecast, and then come back to here. oops. Oh, I haven't actually run the collection itself, which is why it's not picked that up. Okay, so I'm actually going to put that on my on start so that it runs as soon as the app is begun. So we're going to run that on start, and then we're going to play this, and this will now collect the item and show that. So like this, so that's number 8. So if we go back to our SharePoint just to check, the max index we have is of course number 8. So what we want to now happen is when we submit our data into that SharePoint, we actually want it to be number 9. So that's the next thing we're going to do. Now this is a trick I often use when working with galleries, is I'll often build a kind of skeleton, right? And this skeleton is going to show what we want to put into our SharePoint. So this is a connection template I call. So I'm calling this connection template table tempx. The title of that will be whatever the max ID plus 1, so that'll be a 9 in our case, and we can highlight and have a look at that. We can actually highlight it this way and have a look at it like this. I want to put the entry date in as today, right now. The account type, which I'm just putting in as excess, just as a placeholder. I want Power Apps to know that it's a string data type. The forecast prediction is 0, which again, it's just a placeholder. I want it to know that it's a number, and the commentary as well is just a string. So if I now play this, so we're testing along the way, we now know that this is the collection in which we want to store everything from our gallery. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to use a for all function. Now for all is a function that lets you loop through a formula for as many times as you need to. So if I just paste this down here, I can explain how it works. So what we're doing here is for all the values of temp col, which is collected up here, so for all those values, go ahead and patch into table tempx. So I want to put some data in there, and it's saying here that the account type is not, and that's because I haven't renamed my my various items. So account type is actually taken from the gallery itself, which is actually this text box here. So I'm just going to rename that label as account name. So that will now pick that up. And similarly, we need to pick up the commentary, and the commentary also comes from this this box here. So I'm going to rename that as commentary, and then the drop down as well, it needs to pick up that as well, which is called forecast prediction drop down. So I'll rename that as well. And now what that's actually done is it's going to say, so for all the values of temp col, which we haven't collected yet, so we'll just click on that. So another way of testing is actually alt click. So for all the values of temp col, which is everything within our gallery, can you collect into table temp? And we've already got a skeleton there, so it knows what kind of data we should be putting in. This defaults tempx when we use a patch is what we do when we're putting new items in a collection. Can you put in all of this? And we're going to repeat this for every row. So for the first row, the title and mat, these stay the same anyway. So the first item in our table temp, it's going to pick up the account type, which is all, we're going to pick up XX first, and then amortization, building leasehold, commissions, and you can see it's actually slowly built up a whole row. So we've got rows and rows of data. So each forecast is now ready for us to put into our SharePoint location. So step 5, we'll actually build up that connection without that temporary data point which we put in there. Quite often what I like to do at this point is actually give it another collection name. So you don't really need to do this. I like to do this just because it's clearer for me what's happening. So what's happening here is we're doing a clear collect, we're putting it into another collection called table temp, and we're removing that item which we did not need. Okay, so if I now have a look at that, that's got everything in it, but not the temp, the XX that we use, which is just part of our temporary collection. Now we'll go ahead and actually put this into Power into the actual SharePoint. So we've got our step 6 here, which is a, oops, that up again. Oh, where's my mouse gone? There we are. So we're going to put this in to our collection, which is basically another patch, and it's a default because this is an add. It's taking the title from our temporary collection, so now we have everything that we need. Our index is taken from here, our entry date, our commentary, our forecast prediction, and our account types. Everything is ready. So we can go ahead and test this now. So just to make sure that it's doing its thing, I'm going to write test. Okay, test. Let's go 11:07. So quite often I'll do the date just to see if everything's working, and go ahead and just save that. And it'll take a few seconds because it's going through and taking each of those rows and putting that into our SharePoint. So that's all done. So now if we pop over here, and what we'll do is we'll have a look at, let's go index larger to smaller, make that a little bit bigger perhaps. And we have our 9 and we have our test 11:07. So it's great. So now Power Apps component is done, wrong application. But now we've got 2 steps to do really. We need to put this into our Power BI report. We also need to make sure that it refreshes our Power Apps in a Power BI report in the background. So the next step is our Power Automate section. So we said we're going to use all the suite of tools here. So we'll head over into Power Automate. And what we want to do is we want to use our Power Automate connectors to actually refresh this Power BI data set, which we already have ready. So it needs to be published beforehand. I'm going to go into my flows here. I'm going to create a flow. So create a new flow from template. I'm going to do this with a click of a Power Apps button. So a tip here is rename your Power App button straight away, as Power Apps can get a little bit confused if you rename them after. So okay, and we're going to use this connector here, which is the Power BI connector, which is to refresh a data set in Power BI. I'm going to select the workspace, which for me is this Power Platform, the data set, which is called Power BI version 2, because that's what I called it, and click Save. Right, so now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my application, and I want that button to actually attach itself here. So to do that, first within Power Apps, to connect to Power Automate button, basically create a button here and just put it in using this action, Power Automate, and then right at the bottom somewhere here, Finance Refresh Power BI. So that's actually attaching itself onto that button there. But that's not when we want it to happen. We actually want it to happen as soon as the save is done. So I'm actually going to put that down here, and then bring it into here like this. So that's all ready for us now, and we're going to save this for the first time. So we're going to call it App Finance. Keep it quite simple, and then save and publish. So this Power App we can now bring into our Power BI report. I'm actually going to use the existing report, but I'm going to delete that so that we can actually build it up from scratch. Oops, didn't mean to delete that one. Just if we can bring that back. Yep, can indeed. So make that a little bit smaller to give myself some space. Okay. And so what happens here in Power BI is if I delete the right visual this time, so I'm going to remove this one, we have a Power App symbol here. So you can click on this Power App symbol like this, and it's telling me that I need to pull in some field worlds in order to actually start pulling in my app. So first of all, I just pull in a few of these which are connected, and then within the environment, I'm going to choose an application which I already have, which of course we called it, what did we call it? App Finance, indeed. And now it's there. It's asking me if I want to do anything with that. I'm going to click no. And there we are, and now we can publish this, and this is our completed full solution. I hope you enjoyed that presentation. Please do check out my channel and subscribe, look at my other videos, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see. Thank you.